One, and we are recording on Wednesday, September 3rd, 2025 at 10:06 a.m. Eastern Time with Dr. Ryan Cole. We were just talking about, not drinking in old manhood. And one of my friends explained it best. It's like 20 years older than me because I never used to want kids. And he's like, imagine if somebody goes up to like 6-year-old you and explains to you that one day you were going to be more interested in girls than ice cream. And you'd be like, that's disgusting. Like, one, ice cream's amazing and girls are disgusting. And then you hit puberty and you're like, oh yeah, no, I don't care about ice cream. He was like, well, one day, because I'm the podcast of my own, I'm self-employed and I really like that. And he's like, one day like that shine will kind of go away and you'll be more, and I can feel it, just he said that to me in 2020 and now in 2025, I'm like, oh yeah, and that because now when I think back to like how fun middle school, high school, college, all those memories, and like, but as life goes on and as friend groups kind of not break apart in a bad way, but you just go about your lives,
Sure.
and I look back and I'm like, oh, all of my fondest memories are just like grandma and grandpa or like the holidays or something. So in terms of how like the mind changes, it's like when all you want is ice cream and toys, you can't wrap your head around that one day you'll want women. And that's fine because you don't have to want them then. And then one day when you do, it's not like a painful thing where you go, oh, I miss ice cream and toys. You're like, yeah, I don't care about that. And so, not having drank in January 2024, I'd always thought about like just getting sober just for the heck of it. And it always just seemed so boring to me. And now that I'm in it, if I could go back to me 2 years ago and be like, one day you will be more interested in just waking up on Saturday and feeling good than like looking forward to Friday, a week of podcast, and that's like, now let's get shit faced. I couldn't wrap my head around that. But now, as I was just telling you, like I went to the gym, went to the grocery stores as soon as it opened, got some apples, and I got blinds this summer, and I'm looking at like my power bill last summer versus power bill. I'm like, that's those are some good savings, and I'm like, if you had tried to explain this to me even 2 years ago, I probably would have jumped off a building. But now that I'm in it, I love it. And so I have to understand that that's probably what all stages of life are about. And that's what you were just saying. If you could you repeat to everyone what you were just saying about like wrinkles?
Yeah. So I had a great mentor, my last fellowship in New York before I moved out west to Idaho. He would, he was, we were discussing the insanity of vanity. And, it's nice to be fit and take care of the body, this, that, and the other. But to make it fake, too much Botox, too much this, that, and the other, and to wipe away the lines on the face, he said, would you really wipe those away? Think every furrow, every line has a story. Those are lines of wisdom. Those are lines of life. Those are signs that someone has lived on this planet longer than you. They may not be smarter, they may not be dumber, but they have wisdom you don't have. And those lines are just an indication of wisdom. And I thought to myself, that's pretty profound.
Mm.
And I really liked, that approach to thinking about aging is, as you were discussing, and congrats on those goals. I mean, that's awesome, Tommy. And I don't drink much, but I could be the life of the party every now and then, but I haven't had a drink since before Christmas of last year either. And I have a friend coming into town today, a physician. He's looking at getting out of the chaos of the rat race of LA, and he wants to go do a wine tour tomorrow. I'm like, well, I'll be your driver,
Yeah.
but I'm not gonna go wine tasting. But happy to take him to see the beautiful Snake River country and all the vineyards and whatnot. But I'm not. Yeah, you just get to those different stages of life. Now that most of my daughters are grown and gone, I don't have to look at that power bill quite as much and go around the house flipping off all the light
Yeah.
switches, that dad duty thing. But yeah, lines of wisdom. Going back to that thought, we've lost, I think, this societal construct of the wisdom of the elderly. In other cultures, they live three generations in a home, and here in America, we put them in a nursing home and go visit them, once or twice a month or whatever. Not my folks. I mean, my folks are in their late 80s and both spring chickens still and out kicking and living life. And, they have some of the health issues, but my mom looks better than she's ever looked, health wise, physically active. My dad, he's had trauma in his right eye when he was a child, so he's only had one good eye for a lifetime, and so he's losing vision. That gets hard on him, but at the same time, he's still happy. He's got a great sense of humor, and just finds joy in the little things in life. Can't do the same things he used to, but on occasion, he's still climbing up on a roof, fixing a air conditioner swamp cooler at age 87, like my grandpa used to do at 88, shoveling snow off his roof, that kind of thing. So I think there's goals. And yeah, I used to joke with my patients. Maybe I told you this on a previous podcast. I would say to my patients in clinic, "Hey, do you want to know the secret to a good long life?" And they would, lean in and, "Of course I do, doctor. Please, please, please tell me the secret." I'm like, "Okay, choose your ancestors well."
Yeah. Yeah. It's it's got, and I guess one way I can explain it to myself at least is I try to look at it as like a challenge, like an enjoyable challenge. Like for like I love video games. I've always loved video games. It's like a meditative state for me. Some games they're all wildly different, but let's take for example something like Ghost Recon. Broad strokes, special forces. You're going, you're James Bond. You're going in and whatever. And there's different ways to play. You can put it on easy. Just go loud and dumb. You just roll up to the base, immediately. You're all up in a Humvee. You start shooting a machine gun. You're throwing grenades, and it's just that's something where don't really want to pay attention. You're just kind of running around blasting people. And as you dial up the difficulty, for no other reason than to dial up the difficulty, it's like you don't have to. There's not like it's not like you have to do this for some real world reason. It turns into a much different game where all of a sudden, there are security cameras and, you can't just shoot out a light and no one will notice. So you put it on easy, shoot out a light. People are like, hey, what is that? Versus, on a hard one, they see a light shot out and they immediately go, somebody's here. And so just as an example, if you go into it wanting to play it on easy, but putting yourself in a different situation, you're going to be very frustrated at how quickly it goes south and how nothing you do works out. But if you do remember that's just a game and there is no reason any of it, it's just you by yourself playing, you can start to appreciate it for like almost different parts of your brain. You're like, all right, we're not going in there and just, with a tank. You're like, how would you do it? And you got to slow it down. You go, all right, maybe you gotta stay in the sh and there are some like natural things as a human, as like a predator. You just no military experiences. You're like, I should probably stick to the shadows, and you kind of start moving around, and there's a learning curve, but then you can really start to love it for this whole new thing. You're like, oh, I've been playing this game for years, and I've always just gone in dumb and loud. There's this whole other to waiting, to hiding a body. You just knife them, don't get too close because the silencer isn't completely silent. Don't break any windows. You have to pick the door. Don't break it open. And all this stuff. And it's an entirely different thing. And it's not how you would do on, playing with friends. But if you just look at it as a game, you go, wow. And then what's always really cool is to go, not only was it this entirely different experience, but that experience has always been available. There was no update to the game. This isn't part two. Wow, I've been playing it for 5 years and I never knew that you could do this. And so that's kind of how I look at it now is like, if you try to play where I am now with the mindset of where I was, it's not going to jive. But when I look at it this way, I'm like, all right, so what do I do when I wake up on Saturday? All right, well, I'm not hungover. All right, well, maybe, I don't know, maybe just hit the gym again. There's no rule that says I can't hit the gym, or maybe I should read more. Maybe I should go visit family more, or maybe I should X, Y, and Z. And then you start to dig a little deeper. You go, how much was the alcohol because it was fun and it was Friday? And how much was it I didn't want to think about this or that?
Right.
Oh, whoa. And then you go, oh, wow, how many years have I been glossing it over because I go, it's Friday. When reality is you don't want to think about, this thing, that thing. And so that's kind of how I view it. So when you're talking about removing the wrinkles, I'm looking at it like a different game and being like, if I had wrinkles, if I lost all my hair, if I was like, okay, all right, it'd probably be a lot harder to talk to women at 85 than 35. Well, what if it's a different game? Oh, by then you're supposed to be in a lifelong relationship. Oh, by then you're probably not as concerned about getting laid, rather like you can't wait to see the grandkid. Oh, and so that's how I'm trying to approach. That's a long-winded way to say it, but this is how I'm trying to approach it. Like it's a different game and lean in and appreciate the game for what it is now.
Well, I think I like what you say there because there's so many simple things in life that we don't take the time to enjoy. So, you know, I run my little organic farm here, and yeah, as of late, because of travels, my body clock got off schedule. Because I try to meet the sunshine every morning. I try to stand out barefoot in the grass, a little grounding, do the bro thing, do the sunrise, meet the sun, ground, go do the hot shower, cold plunge, all those things. But this, after being off cycle for a couple of weeks because of travels, I was up early so we could have our chat this morning. But it was so nice just to enjoy those simple things and to look at this, gaze at the sun coming up over the mountaintop and have the feet in the grass that I cut yesterday. And, just the joy of looking at the lines in the lawn. And, who says you have to do straight lines? So I did waves yesterday for
Yeah.
fun. And it looked so cool this morning out on the back lawn, looking at the sun come over the mountains and just finding joy in those little things and just being able to say, huh, I'm tuned in to what is. And, kind of that Zen Buddhist thought of, I'm in the now and the now is beautiful. And to be able to not worry about tomorrow and not fret over yesterday, but just to be here. I'm like, I was looking forward to our chat because I'm like, I really like chatting with Tommy. And I want to thank, your one listener that's, with Amber, Ashley, I'm trying to remember which
Oh,
one.
Amberly, yeah, yeah.
Amberly, thank you, Amberly. Yeah, but anyway, just thinking, it's really cool that I get to chat with Tommy today and just have this ability to just find the small joys in life. And yeah, I have some mileage under my belt in terms of years. And I tell people, look, I don't look too bad for
And you don't,
95.
I actually don't know how old you are. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. For being 95, I look pretty good. No, just kidding.
That would
Um,
terrify me. If you were 95, that
yeah.
would send chills down my
Um,
spine. I'd be like, what is this?
clean living, man, clean living. No, I'm 57, but yeah, but yeah, I think in our workaday world and the frenetic nature of the news and all the chaos that we do here and all the negative inputs we get, if you look at your local life, historically, most people never traveled more than 20 miles from their home.
Oh yeah.
So to be in this, yeah, and there was a sense of community. Everybody knew their neighbor. Everybody, lived in, I don't want to say, a Mayberry bubble life, but had a sense of place, had a sense of family, had a sense of community. We've lost that. And we think, oh, we're super connected now, which is cool. But what's the depth of connection? And this two-dimensional world, I'd give you a big bro hug this morning and say, hey, welcome to the day. Hey, how you
Yeah.
doing today? That kind of thing, having coffee together, having the morning bacon and eggs or whatever it may be, and just sitting down at a diner or a cafe. We've lost the three-dimensionality of life. And I'm not saying, technology is a great tool as long as we don't become the tool. And so I think it's important to, I have my wood shop. I know how to use my tools correctly. And if I don't, well, I'd end up being Stumpy Nubs. I still have all 10 fingers, but it's important to use the tool correctly. And I think with technology, to what degree do we think we're connected to everyone? But what sense of emptiness or hollowness do we end up with on the inside if we're not having that human to human interaction? And it's one thing to be alone. I tend to be an introvert and like my recharge time. It's a different thing to be lonely. And I think, we have a epidemic of that societally, unfortunately. because we think we're connected, but we lack the that pheromonal cloud of sitting in a room with other people. We literally, sharing microbiomes with other people, sharing, when you do sit across from another person, they have a hormonal cloud as well. And I think that oxytocin that comes from that tactile nature, if you've heard a little clicking, I've got my new dog behind me, and
I can't hear it.
yeah, I hear her. She's sitting there on the floor. Susie, there she is. She's all curled up.
Oh,
She's retired. I did her an Alaska sled dog.
that's awesome.
She came home with me last October. I'll be up in Alaska giving a lecture next week or next month, sorry. And anyway, I went mushing last time I was up there, or 2 years ago. And last year when I was up there, she was ready to retire. She was a lead dog, ran the Iditarod 7 times. But anyway, point being, dogs, when you pet them, nuzzle their ears and their head and whatnot, they produce up to 10 times more oxytocin, the love, the bonding hormone, than people do.
Uh,
And that's why dogs bond to their masters and, love putting their head on your lap and whatnot. And we lose that in our two-dimensional electronic world. Again, we don't produce as much oxytocin, but just a hug, a hug a day, 10 hugs a day, what that does to our mood. You can hack the body by making your own lactobacillus reuteri yogurt and things like that. There's all sorts of oxytocin hacks. But, I was just thinking of how, I have 6 dogs here on the farm and they've got room to run, but watching even their playfulness and finding joy in play. And I think this is, talking about video games earlier, that there's a joy in play. And I think that's another challenge with the mental health crisis in our society is we've lost the ability to play, whether it's doing art, whether it's, just throwing the ball with a friend, whether it's just going for a walk in the morning with a friend, doing something playful. And everybody's climbing the ladder to, the next dollar, the next paycheck. And some of the greatest payment in life is, hey, you remember when we played that, this, or remember when we went out and did that hike, or remember when, I yard sailed it on that ski slope when we were out last time and I decided that was my last time skiing, those kind of stories, and losing that art of play. And I think societally that's another. I don't know. People ask me what the hell the last 5 years was. They're like, well, why are you so calm? I'm like, well, because no matter what, life is still beautiful.
yeah.
No matter what. And being able to wake up and see that sunrise, or being able to say, I didn't get my whole to-do list done today, but I did do something. And I have the ability to do something. And other people are suffering and can't do even some of the simple things I was able to do. So you meet the day with gratitude, you meet people with gratitude, you meet people where they are. I don't, I don't, I don't judge people. I go into life thinking, hey, there's an interesting person with an interesting story, and hey, look at those wrinkles. What do they have to teach me? You know, or
Yeah.
hey, there's a young person that knows the world that I don't know. I wonder what their world's like, and trying to strike up a conversation with, a teen, having had plenty of them myself over the years, 6 daughters. So it's, yeah, life is beautiful. I'll just boil it down to that.
Yeah, in terms of like, so I live in Portland, Maine, and I was on like in this big apartment building, and I was on one of the lower floors for a couple of years, and then through some like aligning of the stars, I got a current unit that I should not be in. Like it's there's a whole thing for why that was reduced price because of damage, and at some point I'll have to move out when the price goes back up to what it should be. It is obscenely nice, and like you can't see it in here, and that's also on purpose. I don't want anyone to see where I am. That being said, the view I have of the mountains 100 miles away. Portland's not like a real city. This is
Hmm.
the tallest building in the city. Portland's not a this like 10 stories.
Sure.
But because of that, there's nothing. It's essentially like being in a penthouse in Manhattan. Relatively, everything else is below it. So there's nothing's obstructing the view. Okay, so the point of that is I can see the mountains and they're almost exactly 100. I think they're 100.3 miles from my balcony. And it's like Mount Washington, which is the tallest mountain in New England. And you can see that. And then, the sun and all that. And because there's nothing obstructing, I can see the whole day. Every day I go out and I mean, it is. I've been here in this new one for almost 14 months, and I'll send you some of the pictures. I mean, the sun sets behind the mountains, and you can see the atmospheric hazing. Different hills are closer, 50 miles, 30 miles. You can see the different shades, and you can see all the trees, and you can actually see the humidity and airports, and you can see like the blinking aircraft light on the radio towers, like 100 miles away or 20 miles away, and then as the year goes on, more than ever at 35, I feel it in my bones. I'm like, I mean, I always like knew what the seasons were, the rotation of the earth, and but now I'm like, oh, June, sunrise, sunset, and then it's like winter, oh, sunrise, oh, okay, less energy, and I understand it. But my point is the sunsets are so mind-boggling and the way and this isn't even like it's not even like I'm in the Caribbean. I'm in
Mm,
Maine. So this is not like a like a tropical place. Just the difference between like a cloudless sky, it turns into this like pastel backlit neon, and sometimes the rays hit the mountains, and you'll stand out there and it'll bring you to tears. And even on a cloudy day. Just the way, and you stand out there, and I take pictures every day, and I text them to like my family group chat, and my parents have visited, and they're like, no, the pictures don't do it. You stand out there, and you just go, oh my God, and this isn't even. I'm not even like it's not like L.A. or the Caribbean or I'm looking at Mount Everest. It's Portland, Maine. It's just a port, and I look up there and I go, I can't believe like I get to see this now in the last year of my life. Like, and then it kind of dawned on me after like a month of it. I go, these sunrises and sunsets have been happening every day of my, well, they've been happening for billions of years, but every day of my life for 35 years. And, short of maybe being on a plane, I've never seen them and appreciated them. They've always been here though. This isn't new. I'm just at a point of literal elevation that I can see them. And then I also know that I wouldn't be getting up early and going to bed early if I was still, just getting fucked up on Friday, excuse my French, or still smoking weed. And so, whereas the literal elevation, the altitude allows me to see something that's always been there, but I'm only just now aware of it. It's also, I wouldn't be out there enjoying it if I wasn't sober. And so that's kind of a crazy realization. And then I had that realization for several months before it begs the next question where you go, what else is around me at all times right now that I am as oblivious to as I was just up until last year of nightly sunsets and go, oh my God, like sunrise. Oh, I get it now. I get early to bed, early to rise makes you healthy, wealthy, and wise. And I go, well, what else is there? Like what is around me right now that I don't know what it is, but I can only imagine just through basic humility and extrapolation that I must be in a sea of beauty and miracles. And right now I am the equivalent of on a lower floor or still drunk. And what else could there be? And to me, I'm like, I'm 35 and I have like a level of excitement and anticipation that I haven't had since like first day of high school, first day of college, where everything's brand new. You get your light, your first kiss, your first time you drive your car by yourself, first time you drink. I'm 35 and I'm like, what else is out there? Like it's I'm a little kid on Christmas. And it's
mhm.
yeah, and so in terms of like the everyday like I really am there where I'm like, what? I mean, how many other things out there am I currently just swimming in that I have no idea about? and I don't know what they are. I also don't really know where I was going with that. But
No, that's beautiful. And I mean, there is nothing like a good sunrise and a sunset. And, back in my Air Force Academy days, you're in an airplane and the angle of the plane, the camber of the wing, the flaps. I had a lieutenant colonel that said, Cadet Cole, your attitude, which is the angle of those things together, determines your altitude. And your altitude can affect your attitude.
uh,
Oh, wow. And so, being at that higher altitude changes your attitude as well. And, it just having that reflection of perspective. I'm, I've run into that same thing this year. 57 years on the planet. And I've always been into ornithology, love bird watching, identifying behaviors, this, that, and the other, just one of the many hobbies. And so I can tell usually the season by which bird is migrating through. Occasionally, they'll hit the windows, and I've got a smattering of birds that, the barn cats will pick up or whatnot. But this year was the blooms and looking at, oh, wait a minute. Okay, the apricots bloom, then the cherries. Okay, then the pears, then the apples, and just watching flower by flower by flower, and then going out there and just standing by a tree and watching the exceeding abundance of life, not just the honeybees that I keep, but the mason orchard bees, the solitary bees, the native ones. Honeybees aren't native to North America. And just learning about this entire world of entomology this year, watching the progression of pollination, and now, I've always harvested a little of this and that on the farm here. This year is a bumper crop, and I'm like, oh man, I see what being a real farmer is like, because I just finished this crop. Now I've got this. Now I've got this crop. Then I've got this crop. And like today, I'm going to be picking Asian pears and Bartlett pears and Bosch pears, and then elderberries and blackberries and currant berries, and bottling and canning and being domestic and things like that. But, finding the joy in, oh, I grew this organically, grew it on the earth, grew it with nature, and lay up in store for the winter, and then get to share it with friends and family and say, this is from the earth right here. So just those simple seasons of life. But I think you bring up a great point, and I love that you share it with others. Sharing the sunsets, sharing the moments of life, and again, I know what you mean when a picture is not going to capture that
like,
sense
why did I do
of,
this?
yeah, no, that majesty of the depth of color. And it's not, we had snapshots in life. I had a mentor when I was at Mayo, and she said, when you look at a biopsy under a microscope, you're getting a snapshot in time, but you don't get that three-dimensional motion picture of what happened physiologically. So she said, whatever you're looking at under a microscope, put it in motion. You're getting a snapshot of a movie. What's happening
Mm,
to that physiologic process? What's happening to that tumor? What's happening to that inflammatory condition? At what stage did you get the snapshot? Because there's a whole, motion to what's happening under that microscope, but you're only going to get that still shot. And same thing, what you're describing is, and we've got the video cameras as well, but it's still not going to capture the grandeur or the awe. I think that's another thing. Certainly we've lost a lot of play in society, but just the ability to feel awe at something, whether it's a simple mason orchard bee on a bloom or a beautiful pastel you're describing in a sunset. I think play and awe are things that are so critical to just fullness of life. And tuning out of certain substances like you described, I think wakes up some of those senses. And then you find a new life high, a new dopamine drip in the awe of things or in the play of things. And to find, it sends you into the inner recesses of the mind going, huh, I'm joyful and I'm just high on life, and that's a beautiful feeling.
yeah, it's one thing when you find awe in nature that is at least equal to synthetic awes. Yeah, you almost kind of tip your hat. You're like, all right, nature. You can still
Right.
be drunk or eating Big Macs, and you're like, but that mountain is beautiful. And then there's like another level where the nature starts to completely, I mean, like you see this old, black and white footage of the A bomb and, the thermal pulse and then like the shock wave and everything just disintegrates. You start to see that in the awe of nature. And you look at, you know, candy or porn or alcohol versus just like the birds flying beneath you and the sun is setting. And then you look back and you can start to see the stars coming out. And you're just, I mean, you stare at it and you're just like, I can't even. And of course, I'm an idiot. I always try to capture it. Then I look at the video. I'm like, what is this? This is stupid. But it does. It's like a nuclear bomb. And then sometimes I start to think, well, one, I always thought I'm like, well, like most things, alcohol or sex or food or things, you get used to these things, and you go, no, I'll never get used to it. And then you get used to it, and I guess I did get used to it. A new phone, a new car, you get used to it. That was kind of my fear when I first moved in here. I was like, oh man, I'm gonna get how sad is it that I'm gonna get used to this? And here I am 14 months later, and I still find myself, I'm like, I gotta go to bed, but I'll just be walking by the window and I'll be like, what the fuck? Just like still looking at nothing I haven't seen a zillion times. And then as if my mind is being read, sometimes I'll sit out there until it goes down, and then you just see like the dim light and kind of like the solar corona. And then that goes down, and you're kind of like, all right, well, next good thing will be sunrise. And you turn around and you look up and you just see all the stars, and you're like, wait, what? And it's always been there, and I haven't been able to, or I haven't tried to, or whatever, appreciate it. And it kind of ties in with, for me at least. And here's another thing. So I think 10 years ago this happened to me. I would go on pontificating about how everyone needs to stop alcohol and live at a high altitude. And I would have been like, you are going to enjoy this. Like, I know me. And that's what I would have been like, that life is wrong. Versus now, I'm like, oh, that's what got me here. So how could I be mad at that? How could I? And again, if I had tried to make 20-year-old me go sit on a balcony, I'd be like, dude, there's a giant frat party. Like, get away from me. I have alcohol and there are women. And so I know I'm not trying to push it on anyone now, but when I look at that, and a huge part for me has been I've been banned from Twitter like 12 times over the years, and I got like a suspension like a couple months ago for something. I don't remember what. And so I was just like, whatever. And I didn't get back on. And then for whatever reason, I just wasn't getting back on. And I've described this to someone before. One day I got back on it and I couldn't pinpoint it, and there wasn't an exact moment when it happened. But after about an hour, I was kind of just angry, and I realized it wasn't that I like didn't see the sunset. It just didn't register. I was like, yeah, whatever. And then I would get off it for a couple weeks, and it would all start to come back. And then it's like stepping in, it's like being in a dark room and then stepping out into a beautiful day. At first, it's just kind of like this shock, and then it starts to come into focus. And what you're saying about, the digital world's great, we're hyper connected. But like living in, yeah, I mean, like 99% of human history, people didn't leave more than like 7 miles from the point of their birth. Sure, okay, you're in a small village and there's 100 of us, and Dr. Cole and I are friends, and that's all well and good. And if it bleeds, it leads. Well, in a very small community, it's probably important that that happens, because if it bleeds, Bob got eaten by a tiger or he ate a poisonous. That's good. We should all know that, and we should know that
Right.
immediately. That should be the topic of discussion at the bonfire tonight. Okay, you can't have one without the other. So if you get to be connected to the whole world and be like in real time, I can go look at the stock markets in Tokyo, but that also means your brain doesn't know. Your brain thinks you're still in a village. So
Hmm.
everything that bleeds must lead. And next thing you know, man, look at these riots in Los Angeles, and people, the National Guard are going to do this, and then Russia's invading Ukraine, and then what if Tokyo was in Taiwan and China, and then, man, these people don't understand, and fentanyl, doesn't anyone understand, and we're dropping these bombs here, the military-industrial complex, then you have Israel and Gaza, and Pfizer still hasn't released it, and you just, And your brain's doing the right thing. It doesn't know. It's the same reason your body holds on to all those calories from a Big Mac. It doesn't know that you're not starving. It thinks it's doing you a favor. So your brain's like, hey, dude, you know, ignore that sunrise, ignore that sunset. Did you know right now a suicide car bomb went off in Kabul and it killed this many people? And you're like, fuck. But it robs you of everything else. So I guess the point of that kind of whole rant was, I don't know, man. Maybe I'm just at a point where I'd rather if it's out of sight, be out of mind, and that might be willfully ignorant. That might be head in the sand. And I would imagine if there's any theme to this episode in 2 years, I will come back and be like, yeah, you were wrong on this and right on that. But I think that's a huge part of it. You can't go stand out on the lawn and feel your feet in the grass if you're also just like, can you believe what Nancy Pelosi just, you know what I mean? I don't know where I was going with that.
No, no, I like that. And I like how you summarized all the world events in one rant. That was great. Rah, rah, rah.
Yeah.
But and that's that. Those algorithms are programmed to suck us
Well,
in.
that's
Like,
the other thing.
they're programmed to, you are the product, and they want to suck you in. And look, like I said, it's a tool. It can be a useful tool. I'd like to know what's going on.
Sure.
But I catch my 2 minute, 5 minute, whatever news clips of choice or whatnot. But I'm not going to let it scramble my brain for the rest of the day because there's too much. Yeah, I think okay, so I've got a couple decades on you, but at the same time, you realize that clock of life is ticking, and I can waste my time fretting and stewing over all those things, or I could be aware, and having an awareness is fine, but then I'm going to miss out on those simple beauties and simple joys, and then I'm going to lose energy going into the things I would like to accomplish for the day, and like project for yesterday and the day before, my apple cider press that I built a couple of years back. Built an old Amish style press. And the apples are dropping early this year, so I'm going to start cidering soon. Um, and so it needed to be restored. So I took it all apart, sanded it down, finished it, and but it was such simple joy watching it become new again. You
Hmm.
know, with my own hands, and thinking, gosh, my hands work, no pain in the hands. My fingers work, my eyes work, my mind's happy. Of course, I've got, a book on tape or on Audible and a podcast or something running or some good music. So I have some accompaniment in the background, but I'm doing something purposeful and joyful. And I'm not fretting over the bombing here and the shooting there and the this, that, or the other, the get agitated, get angry. And then, like last night, similar to you, we have I've got the mountains to the east, and I can see the Oregon mountains to the west of me by about 50, 60 miles. And just being able to be out on the lawnmower and then watch the sky and go, oh, it's going to be a pretty one tonight.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
it's going to be a pretty one. You can see it setting up. And then you can see why the Eskimos had, 20 whatever names for ice
Yeah.
or 100 names for or whatever it is. They have so many words for it because each ambiance, each setting, each feeling was different. And so they're like, oh, no, this is this kind of ice. No, this is this ice. This is this ice. And just being outside and going, okay, this is going to be this kind of sunset. Oh, it's going to be that angle like you were describing from up high. Oh, it's going to be this angle. So the light timber is going to be different than on this day a month ago. And being able to tune into the cycles of life wherever you are on the planet and stopping and taking that deep breath and going, oh, wow, there's so much beauty surrounding me. There's so much good surrounding me. Why do I need to scramble my brain with all the frazzle and chaos and frenetic, superfluous nature of the world that's not in front of me? So
Yeah.
I like that approach that you're taking to it because, and again, you're young, and I feel young at my age, and maybe I've shared this with you before. I think part of what we're both sharing and describing is curiosity. And I've joked before, the moment you lose your curiosity is the moment you die. Sadly, some people die at 25 but aren't buried till they're 85. and that construct of, never losing that curiosity. And curiosity for the new, maybe a year from now, life changes and I'm not on my little farm. I can't imagine that, but maybe I'm not. What joy am I going to find in whatever place I find myself in that next year? Or when I'm on a trip lecturing, I could be in a boring lecture hall and blah, blah, blah. But where in the world am I? Am I going to step outside, watch the sunrise or the sunset there? Am I going to, find joy in a new friendship? Am I going to find, finding joy wherever you are and finding that awe, finding the play, finding the perspective. And I think, you're a wise young man. That's the way I would put it. When your back hurts, you feel older. I get it.
Oh
But
yeah. Yeah.
but that finding, wisdom comes from living. Those wrinkles come from living. But at the same time, the wisdom doesn't come if you're not engaged and engaging and all that, makes life as rich as it really is. And I think that's what you're finding in those patterns and just finding it's also anchoring too, to
Mm,
go, oh, huh, I'm just a speck in this grand universe, but it's still awesome.
mm. And that's a huge part for me is like, yes, it's beautiful and all that good stuff. I also find that just chronic anxiety isn't there. Now, granted, the chronic anxiety kind of started after my brother died. It was somewhat in college, being kind of crazy pre-med, but whatever. It really started after my brother died, and the fact that chronic anxiety with no reason versus now when I get anxiety, I mean, even up until like 2 years ago, it was still like two times a week where it was not a panic attack, but I mean, it was crippling. It wiped the day.
Sure.
Versus now, it almost never happens. And when it does happen, it's for a legitimate, it's like, oh, I need to find that. Why is my car making that noise? Or it's like, whoa, wait, wait, wait. Why is my car overdrafted $3,000? And you go and find something out. You go, that's good anxiety. I go, thank God for that. But it's not like this. Why do I feel this way? I'm like, I need to feel this way and I need to get my money back. Somebody's screwing me. And so it's like that feedback system. I listen to it now instead of just being like, that's bad, get rid of it, gloss it over with alcohol. And you were saying about the sunrises and sun. Oh yeah, no, you start to see them lining up, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is gonna be great. And then even like it's as I'm in my kind of I moved in last July, my second year of it. I'm like, all right, this summer you get the crazy sunsets because the air is dense and humid.
Hmm.
What I really like about the fall, kind of going into the winter one, is you kind of get this cool thing where the sunsets aren't they're good, but it's during the day because it's less humid and the air is crisper. You start to get almost kind of surreal where you feel like you could reach out and touch it because it's so clear. You can see the ridges and it's very bright. It's noon. And even now I find myself just kind of looking forward to it. I'm like, oh, I can't wait to see it. And there's also almost like because I can see legitimately 100 miles of trees. I swear there was 'cause New England is world famous for its changing of leaves. I mean, it took place over like a week or two, and so I was taking pictures and stuff. But there's almost like a shock wave of
Hmm.
color coming towards you. Now, granted, it takes like 15 days, so you're not noticing it. But if you're taking pictures every day, like I am, you see like a shock wave of autumn colors, and you're like, it is the most. I've done acid. I don't know if it's as cool as that, man. When you're like the earth is changing and it's just this natural phenomena where I mean it melts your brain and then seeing like rain come in and snow come in. Especially it's one thing if it's a cloudy day and it starts to rain, it doesn't really do it. But when there's a storm front,
Hmm.
you look at it and all of a sudden you can't see the mountains. But it's so
Yeah.
far away you don't see rain. It's just that the mountains aren't there. You're like, it's almost like you're living on a flat earth, like the edge is closer. And then the next set of hills kind of goes away. And if you go out and you sit on the porch and you see this thing coming, and then there's lightning flashes, and you start to hear the rumbles and all the birds are leaving. Man, no, I always start to think about like oh, I get like 1,000 years ago where there was no other explanation than like the storm gods are angry. Like
Right?
if you don't have a video game and an iPhone, if you just see that, you look at that and you're like, oh, like the Old Testament God is angry. Like, and it makes me appreciate that more. Where I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, no, that would be terrifying. 1,000 years ago, that would be
Oh,
horrifying. Why are the mountains disappearing? Like, that's
yeah.
horrifying. And I was gonna say is like the grounded nature of it. And it's taken me a little longer to get there, but I think for the first time I've stopped viewing biological aging as like full spectrum death.
Mhm.
And I look at it now like it all goes away. But no part of me last winter was like, well, I guess there goes all the leaves on the trees. It's just, we had a good run. You
Right.
no, not even a split second. You're just like, man, spring's gonna be beautiful. You don't need it requires no faith. No one has to convince you like, hey, don't worry. You don't look at it and go, well, I guess it's just snowing now. It was fun when we had sun, huh? But guess we're an ice planet now. No. You go, oh no, it's gonna be a long winter and it's gonna be so beautiful when it erupts again. You naturally have to start to draw conclusions too. I mean, wherever consciousness is in the brain, or if the brain's a receiver, or I have a little less fear. I wouldn't say no fear, but I have a little less fear of it. If I can see everything age over a year and die and then come back in sparkling beauty, why is it that humans are just the one exception to that? Nope, not for us. It's over and it's over.
Right.
That's what's helped me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I think and that clarity of mind, that clarity of environment, clarity of nature, clarity of just connectedness to all of it and the seasons of life. I feel sometimes for people that, live where there aren't full seasons because I personally have always been blessed to live where there are seasons and have, yeah, what you're describing, being able to go, oh, okay, the leaves have fallen, but you know what? New winter birds show up, and there's still so much abundance of life, or just life in frozen, suspended animation, the
Yeah.
frogs, frog eggs, the amphibians, where are the reptiles hiding? Just wondering how persistent life is amidst all those physical challenges and whether it's Thor and his hammer, in the sky and that storm, thinking on, and I love that you've described that so beautifully, that the ancients and how they used to think. And but the one thing they did that our society doesn't do, they looked up. They looked up. They were dependent on those stars. They guided with their on the boats with their sextants by those stars, or they navigated the deserts, or they navigated the wilderness by those stars. And how many of us, other than those who were in boy or Girl Scouts, years ago, can look up and describe more than a couple of constellations anymore? Let alone, oh yeah, when my grandpa's grandpa was here, that comet came around, and when your grandson's grandson's here, that comet will come around. Those generational campfire stories and being able to sit around the campfire, which is, this is a distant campfire I'm
Hmm.
enjoying, but being able to tell those stories of life together and say, huh, wow, I hadn't observed that, or I hadn't thought of that, or huh, and that art of the story, the art of history passed on verbally, now that we're in such a digital world, or even losing the art of the written page, to be able to connect through long lines of story together is real. And I think that's becoming a lost art as well. And I don't mean to be negative. I'm with you. All these beautiful things, but they're always there. And how many of us are tuning our receivers to these to the grandeur of what is instead of to W negative 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 input and in today on W negative 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 this went bad wrong and this is bad in the world and this is that instead of WAWE, here's W off,
Yeah, yeah.
tune in. And
It's
yeah,
I think for me, what makes me excited is because no part of me, I don't think you are either. No part of me like wraps the conversation up with like Luddite supremacy of like
no, not at
therefore
all.
destroy. No, no. I'm like, okay, I know that maybe Twitter's not for me. And okay, but I'm like, I wonder because what? So you look back at like the ancients, but you can kind of figure that out. And I go, what hasn't been done, what I haven't seen, is how do you take that sort of detached piece and like a new cocktail, mix it with the internet? And I'm
Mm,
like, that's wild. The internet doesn't have to all be negative rape, genocide, famine.
right.
Part of me is like, what event horizon are we approaching where maybe you do appreciate these things and then you juice it up with gigabit internet? Like, I don't know. I
Hmm.
don't know. I feel like a wizard, like mixing things. Like, it might blow up. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, to me,
Well,
that I start to get like the little kind of like butterfly feeling of like, I don't know, like what's
there's
coming.
possibility. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
possibility. And I think that's a beautiful perspective because it is a great tool. It is a great tool. I'm not a Luddite, you're not a Luddite, but being able to say, okay, how creatively can we connect the beauty, connect the story, connect the campfire, and maybe eventually we are that little Star Wars hologram chess set in the original Star Wars, sitting around the campfire and hologram together. Cool.
Yeah.
'Cause
Well, it's
that
like,
way, it's not embodied per se, and we've lost the embodied aspect of life, and it's affected a generation. But maybe it gets us closer back to the embodied experience.
yeah. And even now, it's like, yeah, I can crap on the internet and Twitter and stuff where all but one of my podcasts have been exactly this. So I'm like, well, clearly it can't be all bad. It's like
Right.
this discussion exists on that backbone. Uh,
Right.
but for now, Dr. Cole, we gotta wrap it up because I have another show in a couple minutes, and I don't want my alarm to go off. And sometimes I do that. Where if I have another show, I'll set an alarm, and it will go off, and it will scare the shit out of me. It's so we'll be talking about this, and I'll jump and like smack the microphone, and I'm like, oh. So I'm trying to like preempt that. I'm like, all right, we gotta bring it back down. That was awesome, man. And I really appreciate that.
It
That
was fun.
felt good. That felt good. Felt like a warm bath. I
Well,
appreciate it.
it's a good way to start the day, Tommy. And,
Beautiful way.
always grateful for you on this. Again, thanks to Amberly.
Yes.
And,
Thank you, Amberly.
and yeah, anytime, Tommy. I love what you do. I love that you bring in so many varied voices. I love that you explore so many things. I love your curiosity. I love your kindness. I love your always necessary amount of snark because that's part of life too.
Uh,
No,
trying to tone down the F bombs.
no, 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 no.
Sometimes
Keep
they
it
still
real.
just they come in so strong, and I'm like,
Yeah, keep it real.
I
Keep it
gotta let
real.
it happen. I gotta let
You
the
just be you,
thunderclap.
man. So
Yeah.
well, this has been awesome. I appreciate it, and I hope you have another good chat with whoever's coming up. And always appreciate you, and thank you so much. And
Yes, sir. And Dr.
stay
And
stay awesome, my friend.
yes, sir. I do consider you a good friend, and I love you, man. Thank you for being here. This was beautiful. So
Thank you, brother.
we will wrap this up. I will send this to you. It'll be up probably tomorrow.
Awesome.
Anything you want in the description, just text it to me, any links or whatever, and I'll put it in there. And yeah, man, you enjoy your day.
You as well. Thank you,
Thank you
Tommy.
so much. Guys, thank you so much for watching.